as we mentioned earlier, you wrote a column about the same time last year. And that column you wrote, you spoke about how the job of a spokesperson is even more challenging now because of the reality of what you called post-truth politics. And you defined this as a reliance on assertions that feel true but have no basis in fact.
Yes.
From that time up to now, it seems like we've spiraled down even more in that reality of post-truths. How will a spokesperson like Harry Roque maneuver his way through this reality and not be part of a system that propagates this post-truth politics? Because we're seeing it happen.
Yes, that is true. In fact, The Economist months back wrote an editorial discussing post-truth politics, and depending on which side you are, it's being used one way or the other, consciously or unconsciously. Bottom line is, that is definitely one of the great difficulties that a spokesperson or a press secretary would have to face nowadays, with technology and with what you call post-truth facts, or false news for that matter. These were not prevalent then, but with the advent of social media, this has become so prevalent that sometimes people are confused which exactly is the real news. That is why, to a large measure, I think the job of the communications team as well is to ensure that we somehow make our citizens understand that they must exercise discernment. Great discernment in understanding the news. Not just to accept the news as they are, but also for them, especially those coming out in social media, to go beyond what is written. At the end of the day, to a large extent, traditional media is still, to a large measure, traditional media like your news here, as well as on print, would still be the main and original source of good, hard, established facts. Because there are systems that are in place to make sure that what is printed or what is broadcast is the truth. But admittedly, we all know that even traditional media sometimes fall prey to fake news, or post-truth facts. And that's a reality. So it is important now for the spokesperson to be able to navigate these very treacherous waters and still able to articulate in a very sober manner. It's very difficult, believe me. I've been there. It's not easy to be sober and to control your emotions when you're being attacked on a regular and daily basis, especially when you're being attacked by falsehoods and lies and misinformation.
But then on the other hand, I mean, we've seen it happen as well in this administration, that there were more than one occasion when they were the source of the post-truth. So the question was, how can a person like Harry maneuver his way so that he won't be part of that system that propagates all these falsehoods? Because there were times when they were called out on that.
If I did read in the past that there were times that they were accused of coming out with that. Now, if such were true, if it is indeed established that such were the case, it is incumbent upon the head of the communications team and the spokesperson to make sure that this is corrected. I do not think, I honestly believe that this administration would tolerate the propagation of false news. But then again, how can you really control social media? In the same way that in any corporation, for example, I'm sure that the top management of any corporation would not want the propagation of any false news or false propaganda or false advertising, because it will bite them back. But then again, how can you control, really? It's very, very difficult. Even Facebook, Google, and Twitter are having a difficult time and are facing sanctions from governments because of, for example, the proliferation of hate mail, the proliferation of information that will encourage more terrorism. But then again, that is it. It's really a fight between democracy, your right to free speech, and at the same time, the right to regulate. It's an ongoing, it's an evolution that is still constantly evolving. We don't know where it will lead, but one thing's for sure, it's here to stay, and it will even, communications will even be I would say, be faster in the years to come.
Okay, we're running out of time. They're telling me we have a few minutes left. There is talk that Attorney Roque, your friend, wants to run for the Senate. You're a political insider too. If this is true, Mike, do you think that this stint as spokesperson would help him in that bid, or would it be political suicide?
Well, it really depends. To be honest, it really depends. You'll never know. You're always there on TV 24/7. So in a way, that's a big plus. Because if you're running for a national position, name recall is crucial. As we all know, we have seen so many actors and actresses, people in the news that have become senators and even presidents for that matter. So running for a national office requires a high degree of awareness. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, according to certain studies, if you have an awareness rating of about 75 to 80, you have a very good chance of making it to the Senate. So in that sense, yes, definitely it's an advantage. However, there is of course the sword of Damocles hanging, and I'm sure Secretary Roque is very aware of that and will try to navigate as carefully as he can, because you are under the microscope 24/7, as like I said, like a fish inside a fishbowl in the middle of a kindergarten class. Your every statement, your every move, your every gesture, your every position on a particular matter is being scrutinized, and not only once or twice, but many times because of social media. So if for one reason or the other, you said something or must have done something that will have a negative or a backlash, then it may affect. But awareness-wise, yes, it is a plus.
Okay, we've sort of dissected the anatomy of a spokesperson in the past 30 minutes, but
I tried.
What to you is the hardest thing about being a spokesperson?
Wow.
A presidential spokesperson at that.
As I said, I think it's really the toughest job, but the hardest thing is really having to be always on your toes on all the possible issues, from the economy to politics to foreign relations to domestic politics to terrorism, everything. You have to be able to understand and comprehend this. The policies of the different branches of government, for example, the policies of the different departments of the executive branch of government, for example. You must be able to articulate this well. So it means a lot of reading, a lot of interaction with members of the cabinet, a lot of interaction with various government agencies, a lot of dealing with the media. And that's not easy. And of course, they can be very demanding. I would remember days in the past wherein I have to really wake up at 4:30 in the morning to answer calls from the radio stations.
Yeah.
And if I don't, somehow I end up being mentioned that I was not available. Oh, that's another thing. You must be accessible, not only, of course, to your prime sources of news, but you must be very accessible to the media. You must not allow yourself to be unavailable, because if you do that, that is a great sin. You will deprive the administration or the presidency, for that matter, an opportunity to articulate a position. Number two, you will be allowing the media to look for another source, and that other source may be against you. So you must deal with them. That's the difficulty, but that's the part of the job. It's par for the course. You must deal with them and have access to your prime source, and make sure that you're accessible to the media.
Okay, one job, and that job is to control the narrative. That's what your job.
Very good point. Well, to control the narrative as well.
Harry's, not yours, Harry's job. Thank you, Attorney Mike Toledo, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Privilege talking to you. And that's all the time we have. You can catch this episode on iWantTV or TFC.tv. I'm Karmina Constantino. Talk to us again next week on Talkback.